Hi, this is Masters of Podcasting. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Conley.
And today we are going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 2, the season finale, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
Yay! We're so glad to have you with us, Alyssa.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so excited.
Yes, Alyssa is the voice and the lovely lady behind What the Fuck Did I Miss? Her recaps are epically funny, and we are glad to get to chat with her today about this episode, sort of give a little breakdown of what we thought, and kind of talk about our favorite highs and lows of the season. And then Conley and I are gonna discuss the awful predictions we made at the end of last season, and the fact that Conley is officially a psychic now, and that I am terrible at this. So
I should have a new career path.
You should just give up in advertising altogether. Wear a shawl and some beads, and there you go.
I like it already.
So, let's start off by talking about Bill and Ginny at the start of the episode, and basically the best sex that they've had pretty much all season, or throughout most of the back half of the season. This was a nice cap on a long dry spell, I have to say.
Yeah, I can't talk about it because I'm dead.
Oh, Lord.
It killed me, like, actually.
Hand to God. And what killed me with the comedy was the fact that they were doing all of this and it was getting super hot, and the credits would kind of fade in, and then they'd have a really super hot sex part, and then the credits would like be really still and not be in there, and then as soon as it was over, the credits would come back in, like they knew how they were going to plan it out. They didn't want to interrupt our like open-jawed, gaping at the screen.
They just didn't want to mess with our pristine screen caps, let's be real.
Jesus Christ. It's like they know. It's like they know their fans.
Credits are a boner killer.
Oh, they really are. So it was good to get to see them kind of finally like accidentally stumble upon what we now know is what they called sensate or sensory focus, and just this idea of spending a lot of time, and they spent weeks, I think, working their way through non-sexual touching clear up to actually initiating sex. I think one thing that I really thought was a little symbolic was the fact that when Ginny lets Bill start kissing her when they get into the second phase of it, she's, it clearly depicts that she's progressing through time by wearing these different outfits, different sets of underwear, and she's in white. And I thought that was very bridal. And throughout this episode, she also wears a ring on the fourth finger of her right hand. And you see it in a lot of shots where she has her hand on his shoulder. But it was kind of symbolic in a subtle, vague sort of way. But I liked that.
Yeah. I didn't even notice that. Wow.
I know. I'm sitting here thinking, I missed a lot of small details. I was just watching the
I was a little distracted.
I've watched it too many times. Let me say that. I'm really gonna miss this show now that it's going into its hiatus, and I'm like sitting here rocking because I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself now that the show is going back away for a little while. So my overanalysis stems from my enthusiasm. I promise.
Just sit in front of your TV's warming glow.
Yeah, true. Besides the fact that it was brilliant and amazing and awesome, I mean, what did you guys kind of think about, like, the fact that all of this was really wrapped up in kind of a tight time frame when we really got a cap to this whole lengthy, impotent storyline in, like, 5 minutes?
Thank God.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about his dick not working, so I'm really glad that we're over that.
Well, and I think, too, I was saying last episode, I kind of got exhausted. Much as I love Michael Sheen, much as I love this show, I got kind of tired of the whole impotence plot being, like, Michael Sheen crying man pain tears because he is insecure. I just want to watch them do it shamelessly.
I don't want any more whiny baby hooker blowjobs in the alley.
God, that was so gross.
I want Bill and Ginny to get down.
Exactly. Let's wrap this up, please.
That's all we need in life is just Ginny grinding up on Bill. And that made me think of the Paley Fest panel. Did you guys watch that back in like March? Because Lizzie Kaplan made some comment like some people make burgers for a living and some people get naked and grind up on Michael Sheen. And I thought, I was like, that's what she's talking about, is that scene where she's just like working away over him. Go, Ginny.
Between her and the prop people, I mean, kudos.
Yeah, kudos, guys. I know it's a little bit early. We haven't gotten through the whole episode or anything, but I know this season has really focused on issues of masculinity and kind of Bill's inner workings and his private life. What do you guys think of the possibility that season 3 could focus more on Ginny, especially given what happens later in this episode and kind of the drama that has come out of it? I feel comfortable kind of not making a direct prediction, but sort of seeing this show in its third season start to shift over and focus on Ginny's internal workings.
I would love to see that. I think that the finale especially has kind of set that up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's introduced a lot of inner conflict for her, and we get to see that in small moments, like her, crying before she picks up the phone and hiding it in and kind of dealing with stuff like that. I think that is kind of where they're going. I would love it if it did go there because, as you said, we've kind of gotten into Bill and where he comes from and why he is the way that he is, and I would love to see the flip side of that coin.
And I think Lizzie Kaplan did mention somewhere, I confess, I haven't read any of the interview text from this, but she mentioned that she would really like Susan Sarandon to play Ginny's mother, and I think that would be fantastic.
Oh my god, I love Susan Sarandon. Stop.
that would just play into that so well because we do hear we have her little things about she was a pageant child, her mother was really had big expectations for her, so
just go ahead and kill me, I'm dead.
that would be super interesting.
I think too if they explored kind of this level of denial and lack of self-awareness that Ginny has and did something with that in season 3, because that's one of the more fascinating parts I found of this season, where Ginny, pretending to be in therapy as someone who's been sexually traumatized, and then later in this episode when she's like, oh, I'll just give up custody of my kids and we'll show this thing on CBS and then I'll magically get it back. I think that would be really, I don't think fun is the right word, but fun is what I'm thinking. I just want to see that play out.
Intriguing and just a really fascinating storyline.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a quick question for you guys. What do we know about her dad, Ginny's dad? Has she ever said anything about her parents as a whole? She's mentioned her mom a couple of times.
She's never mentioned her dad in the show, but in the biography, she spent some time talking about him.
Okay.
Did you want to know kind of what her relationship with him was like, or do you want to be unspoiled?
I have the book. I haven't read it yet, just because I don't know if I want to be fully spoiled.
Yeah.
I accidentally read something one time, and I was like, I didn't want to know that that's going to happen. So
I think the thing that you're thinking of is a really big moment in history.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. She had a good relationship with her father. I mean, that's what. It doesn't really spoil anything, but yeah, that. I'm surprised that she hasn't mentioned him. Honestly.
Maybe she will.
I don't know. I'm really trying to remember the mentions of her dad from the book, and granted, I have not gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, but I
just remember that her dad didn't have big ambitions, but her mother absolutely did, and she and her mom got into some political work at one point, which is why she was singing on military bases. They both did incredibly interesting stuff. The episode where the reporter was asking Bill about how he became a pilot, I wanted a lot more out of that. Talk about how Bill flew planes, because there's a whole bunch of stories involved in there, and it's really interesting. I have in my notes one other thing when they're sitting there giving the recap of the awesome, great sex. They talk about successive and successful nights, and Bill suddenly decides that he's sitting there tying his bow tie, and all of a sudden he decides that he doesn't like the way that he's doing it, and he completely pulls it apart and starts over again, and then just sits there, and Michael Sheen meticulously ties his own bow tie. So then we get Bill's fever dream, and what I swear to God I thought was a stroke. I turned to my friend that I was watching this with, and I was like, is he, are we watching him fall apart? What is happening?
I think I was just cackling, honestly.
I was too.
I do love that he managed to see himself as JFK, because it works on so many awesome levels. It kind of goes back to what Shep was talking about. With the last episode, I can't twinkle, I can't fuck. Look, he can twinkle, he can fuck. Ha, ha, ha. And so it's a celebration of President Boner at last coming into office, winning the erection. Ha, ha, ha. Yes.
Well played.
Yes, and then on some level, I mean, I'm sure the writers didn't intend it this way, but the English major in me says that this is kind of a subconscious realization of where the future is going, and it ties into the end of the episode and the whole hopefulness for the country and how this new youthful president was taking over and things were going to be great. All of that said, it is very telling to me that he still kind of sees Ginny as Jackie O sitting there in the car waiting for him, and she's just kind of an ornament there to look pretty. And wave and wear white gloves and a pillbox hat.
Well, what's funnier to me is that there was Libby, sort of the obstacle between him and Jackie and ostensibly the White House or, like, Boner Mansion or Playboy or wherever he's going. That was what I loved about it, honestly. I really liked that costuming choice and just...
There was, like, an uncanny valley aspect to it. Like, I saw her and I was like, woof, that was really striking. I've been noticing lately that as the series has gone on, like, you look at old GIFs of Libby hanging out in the pilot, and she's got kind of natural-looking blonde hair, and now Libby is all bottle-dyed. Like, her hair, she is a Hitchcock blonde now, and she is... like, starting to veer into Betty Draper territory. She's gone full creeper.
But she's nowhere near as icy as Betty Draper.
Her personality
she's still got that, it's not quite full Hitchcock blonde, I don't think.
Oof. Yeah, but wearing red, that was a really good choice. And I did like the, like, one piece of confetti that floated past her. It was so scary.
Kill it with my laser eyes.
Mm-hmm. That kind of encapsulates everything that Bill and Ginny do at the start of the episode. Do we want to go on and talk about Ginny and George and their whole conflict this episode?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I like that straightforwardness.
It's very important.
Usually Conley and I sit and argue or discuss which direction we want to go next. Well, we want to do this one next, but maybe we want to do this one next, but maybe this would keep people's interest.
No, we're doing George.
We're doing George.
Not literally, gross.
Nasty. Who wants to start?
Honestly, I spent the whole episode just with my palm permanently pressed to my forehead, just, God damn it, Jenny.
Making some great life choices.
Well, and it was one of those things, too, like, the lawyer said this to her verbatim last episode. Make small concessions so you don't have to make big ones. And then she suddenly decided it would be a good idea to chase after George with an unsigned custody agreement, demanding that he can't see his kids.
You have to remember, though, that comes off the back of their 6-week trip. She hadn't had her kids for 6 weeks, and maybe she kind of reacted irrationally because she was missing them and she had them gone. And now him saying that he wants them even more, I think she completely overreacted, but I think it was based in the emotion of having gone a month and a half without her kids.
And I think it plays into, something that we see in her typically, which is just she doesn't want to do a thing unless someone else wants to do it more. And then it's like that reactionary, oh, well, you want the kids. No, I want the kids. I'm getting the kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you do kind of see she's got a bit of an escalating style personality. Although when she and George were standing outside the classroom talking, I kind of thought he's being a bit of an ass. Like, I know he has an ultimate point about the fact that she is absent for a lot of their stuff, but still, like, bringing it up in the way that he did, just kind of the way that he phrased it. I don't remember exactly what he said. I just didn't like it on rewatch. It just gave me a really gross feeling, the way that he kind of approached the topic. And it just seemed to really set her up to come, like, just to be really defensive and reactionary.
And honestly, he's not one... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go on, Alyssa. That's all you.
I was going to say, honestly, he's not the one to talk, because in the first season, he wanted her to pay him to babysit his own kids. So the fact that he's so not understanding of her, and he's preaching to her about something that he only recently has learned anything about, so that's why it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
And the fact that he's been only been married for 6 months. Audrey has only been an influence on him, that we know in a marital sense. Maybe he's been dating her for a while, but it's like you really kind of start to get the impression that Audrey is the power behind all this, that Audrey is making all these judgment calls and these decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
Distinct from the Johnsons.
Well, and the way that he sets it up, too, it's not only, I think Audrey is a good person or a good step-parent, and she, should get to spend more time with the kids that are now her stepkids. He positions her as this wedge between, the perfect good parent, and then supposedly saying he and Virginia are the bad parents, but clearly it's, well, I'm with Audrey and I'm reformed. You're still a bad parent because you don't spend any time with the kids.
That's absolutely true. It's a lot of chess maneuvers, and I don't know that George is smart enough to be like a grandmaster in that sense, but just kind of the way it turned out was really shitty for everyone.
I'd say he
obviously
knows enough to push Jenny's buttons pretty well.
Yeah,
he's not going to go to Russia for the finals anytime soon, but He's not exactly a novice, I would say.
That's true. That's true. And I did get the feeling when they were standing there talking in the hallway, I have this in my notes, that he mentions, like, that he's seen Henry's report card. You really get the feeling that Ginny has no idea that Henry was even issued a report card, because she just kind of evades and is like, oh well.
Report card, yes. A thing that I witnessed.
Yeah.
Other than really her complete insane idea that one CBS program was going to get her out of the doghouse as far as the judge was concerned. I don't know what else I have to say about that.
I mean, the apart from that, it was, and people have pointed this out. One thing that I did notice was when she sits down to talk to Herb, he tries to hand her a box of Kleenexes, and she says, "Oh, I don't need those." You really are going forward, because you are going to make this terrible decision. And this goes back to Bill and Ginny being really good at demonstrating physical affection, like even in little ways, as they showed at the start of the episode, and being really good with each other physically, but having absolutely no idea how to talk to each other or communicate their ideas and the ways that they're depending on each other in these complex formulas and hierarchies. And let me just say that I don't know where she gets this idea, like how she came up with the notion that this film, that doesn't mention sex at all, is somehow going to get her back in the good graces of a judge, because the court is like, that doesn't like erase the court's mind as far as her past as a parent. And she has been absent for a lot of stuff. And so I'm just not sure why she thinks that's going to wipe the slate clean. So in a sense, like, I feel bad for her that she makes this terrible decision, but I also kind of don't, like, it was not a smart move, and it was not a smart move for her lawyer to let her go through and do that. I don't know why he thought that would be a thing that would work.
I guess I'm just wondering, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but as far as, like, prosecution and defense, isn't, like, if George sued Jenny for custody, wouldn't her only defense basically be, obviously, that she is a fit mother, but to the tune of, well, the prosecution has no case, so, you know, why are we even arguing this?
Well, George would come in and try to do a character assassination.
Obviously, yeah.
By providing evidence that she's been absent over the years. So he would bring it up and say, you're an unfit mother, and her defense would be, well, you know, I think she has a very weak defense even without her decision, because basically It's, you know, I'm the mother, and the courts in the 1960s are going to recognize me as the best option for sole custody. Like, that's pretty, as far as I can see, like, I don't know the details, but that's pretty much what it would be.
I have a quick question. They had said something at one point about how his lawyer was asking questions at the hotel.
Yeah, where did that get started?
How did they know about the hotel?
Michelle Ashford
maybe they
mentioned,
had an investigator.
Maybe.
But that's what I mean. I feel like you said, it would be a character assassination, and they would, you know, they're starting to build all of these things that would essentially give them a case.
Yeah.
And say, oh, well, she's at the hotel this day and this day and this day until this time, so she's not with her kids. And I feel like that was kind of the snowball that they were going to kind of get rolling, and maybe that's why she freaked out.
I think you guys are right. I guess I'm thinking, since they really have no defense as far as, other than, well, I birthed them and I want them, I guess their defense would essentially have to be, well, you know, you have no case, and I'm clearly a fit mother, which obviously is not going to hold up in court.
Just a terrible, terrible thing that had to happen. And I don't know, do you guys, I mean, how much do you guys put the blame on Bill for killing the film and wrecking Ginny's relationship with her children in a legal custodial sense?
The blame I put on him is for not talking to her about it first. I feel like if he would have consulted with her before pulling he just made an arbitrary decision. She is his partner, and they are in this together, and he went without even talking to her and just pulled the plug himself. And that's kind of the blame that I put on him. Like, even her kid issues aside, that's irrelevant to me, because the fact I'm upset that he didn't consult with her. I have a question about the timing. When she was sitting there waiting for the lawyer to come in, she was just kind of staring at the wall. And then Bill came in, and it was like he wanted to talk to her about, he said something like, I have an alternate, and she kind of cut him off or whatever. He was like, what are you doing? I feel like he was maybe going to go in and broach the subject with her. But then when she started talking about how she's waiting for the lawyer and she's doing this with the kid and kind of going into all of that, he dropped the issue. So at that point, had he already gone through and called Scully, or did he do that after she told him about all of the legal issues?
That's a good point.
That is a good point, and I assumed that he had already made the phone call to Scully and was basically going to go in and pretend like he was asking her, but really just kind of make a case and be like, well, I really think this is the best option, and I'm just going to kind of do this even in the face of your objections, because that's the way I feel about it. I just assumed that he had already done it, because when he talks with Scully, he told Barton at the bar that he didn't know when he had called him that she was in the middle of a custody dispute. But maybe he only meant the first time he called him, if he called him multiple times at all.
Do you think he called him one time to get the book and then called him again, giving him Ethan instructions to fuck up everything?
I think he must have, but
yeah.
But then I think about it again, and it was like the way Barton talked about it at the bar. He was kind of like, "Yeah, I took it on myself to deal with Ethan." Like, I didn't think Bill knew about Ethan until he saw him on TV. So the chronology of that is a little weird.
Because I thought Ethan was the surprise there, because to me, at least, God knows I hate Ethan, but coming at it from the opposite point of view, why would Ethan want to partner with Barton on anything, let alone something that would help Bill in a roundabout and shady way? Like, I think he would just gleefully want to come in and be like, "Oh, Kaufman, you're doing sex research? I'm in. I can't tell you why."
I doubt Barton phrased it to him as a roundabout way to help Bill. I think he probably went in, and made it sound like he would be fucking over Bill, because that's essentially, from the outside, what it looked like. They didn't know that Bill wanted to pull the plug on his own shit, So I feel like that was probably, I don't know. I don't even remember what
I think you've got.
Well, I think
got
that's
a point.
the only reasonable explanation we would have for it. It's just, I guess I'm just curious as to how that all went down.
Yeah, me too.
And it's one of those things where maybe they explain it next season in more detail, because that's going to be a bomb that's going to blow up in everyone's faces eventually. If not now, then at some point, like in the 70s, once they're already,
It's going to happen when Bill and Virginia are really fucking happy, and then she's going to find out, and it's going to be like a total shitstorm. That's what's probably going to happen.
Man, it's going to come back in a big way. So, yeah, super, super not cool way to end it, but at least, it was kind of nice to see that there were some parallels in a way, with Barton showing up again. And did you guys, I just had this running thing when I was watching the episode about, were people hallucinating? Because I started to wonder if, Libby was just making shit up.
What is real?
I wasn't sure, because then I was wondering if Bill was actually talking to Barton, or if he was just hallucinating or daydreaming.
What did you think Libby was making up? Because I could kind of see a case for, Bill imagining Barton, but
I thought maybe she had finally, had a really explicit sexual dream, or had finally, analyzed and admitted to herself that, she was attracted to Robert, because there were some aspects of it that didn't really ring totally true to me, like her sneaking over to his house at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
What, Bill wouldn't wake up and see that she was gone and that her car was gone?
But was Bill in the house? Were they still doing Team Impotence at the hotel?
Who knows? Maybe.
I mean, I pretty much assume that Bill is never at home, because he spends so little time there, so it really didn't bug me that she wasn't there. My only thought was, I hope she got a babysitter at some hour. I was going to say, who's
watching your kids, yeah.
Speaking of Libby and Robert, do you guys want to move on to that, or do you want to talk about Ginny and the kids some more, or do you want to talk about Lester and Barbara first?
I don't care.
Ladies' choice.
Oh my. Alyssa, you have opinions?
Let's do Lester and Barbara.
Alrighty. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, so yeah, Lester and Barbara go on a series of dates to movies that they argue about, and then he slams her against a car, and I love the whole realizing that they come to the realization in this episode, I think, that they're not completely broken, and that there is value in their relationship even though they can't have sex, and then they, through that, determine that that's what they want. And that they're hesitant in the beginning about moving forward with treatment, like Lester writes it off like, oh, well, we're just not going to have sex and da-da-da, it's fine. And then slowly throughout the episode, they come to the realization that that is something that they want. And I love the ending of them looking like they're game, and that next season they're going to actually try and go for it. And I think that's great. I love watching them unfold. I think they're perfect together.
Yeah, I did like that we got some, because I had in my notes, we got some hints that they were maybe kind of doomed, like that they weren't really getting along, because Lester made fun of Barbara's movie pick as being really terrible, and Barbara just didn't understand why Lester wanted to go see the foreign film. But then, like, they really cinch it and pull it together when he asks her, like, will you not give up on this with me? And, you know, that they have something deeper, and that they have a deeper reason to stick it out, and not just stick it out, but to try to grow as people and tap into this thing that they both want.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, Melissa, you were mentioning you read something on one of the forums.
Some of the reaction to this online was interesting, and I mean that in a way. Some people were very angry about Bill's dialogue with Lester the first time around when he tells him, you know, you're not going to want to have a relationship if you can't have sex. And I noticed that there were some reactions of people saying, well, you know, Lester and Barbara are asexual, or even, you know, not even diagnosing them particularly, but just saying, you know, asexuality is a recognized status or form of lifestyle for some people, or just not as a choice, but just kind of a way some people are. My response to that would be asexuality wouldn't have been noticed as far as I know. Like, I'm not a sexologist. I don't know for sure when it was given stature in academic circles, but Bill would not have known what asexuality was. Plus, on top of that, you know, Lester and Barbara had sexual experiences in the past, so clearly they'd had sexual urges at some point, and they wanted to continue to try to work towards that and to try to have that be a part of their life together. So I don't know that I agree very much with people who are angry at Bill for not recognizing asexuality as a thing, simply because that kind of wasn't what he was dealing with. I can understand that, like, Bill sort of phrased it in a way that was like, well, if you don't have sex, you're not going to be happy. But he very specifically meant the context of Lester and Barbara together.
Yeah, I think it would have been different if Lester and Barbara, as you said, had never had sex, had never shown any interest in sex, or even, you know, had maybe had sex once and been like, no, this isn't for me. I don't think I ever want to again. But, I mean, they clearly exhibited interest in it. Even among their dysfunction, it was one of those things that they were constantly, I don't know if broken is the right word, but clearly and understandably upset because they couldn't have it. And so I think Bill's remarks in that context made perfect sense.
I agree. I always got the impression that it was something that they wanted, but it was more of like a physical, it was always their physical limitations, obviously backed by emotional trauma, especially in Barbara's case, but it wasn't ever an asexual thing. I never got that vibe. I never thought that they were asexual. I always thought that it was something they wanted to, but just physically couldn't do.
Right. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think they're a really sweet couple. I think of the 4 pairings that we see in this episode, it's really Lester and Barbara who are the most honest with each other, and arguably, you know, they're equals in a very true sense, and there's a kind of sweet innocence to them, like they're really rediscovering their whole, you know, paired sexuality, which is nice to see, because the other couples are cynical and jaded in their own ways, and they're sort of there's a lot of negative aspects there, but Lester and Barbara are at least willing to make a go of just, you know, trying to sleep side by side, holding each other's hands. And there's something really poignant about that image.
I was just going to say, can we talk about how cute their little sleepover was? That was so cute.
I love that they were wearing...
With the little almost matching pajamas.
They were precisely matching pajamas. Like, it was 2 pairs of Lester's pajamas. It was so cute. So cute.
Too much.
They're adorable. And Lester has proven his value in sticking around and coming back to the study. Yay, Lester.
Lester's gotten some balls recently, which I really appreciate. Like, he's standing up to Bill and telling him his bow tie sucks, and then even today, or this episode, when they were screening the rough cut of their sex video, he was just making all these comments in the background. They were killing me. He was so funny. I love him.
Yeah, he's had some really good zingers the past couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anything else we want to say about Lester and Barbara?
I'm good.
Let's move on to Libby and Robert and their sexual escapades in the middle of the night.
Whoo! Booty call!
That's right.
Bow, 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 bow.
Like Robert's never had a booty call at 2 in the morning. What?
On. Yeah.
Don't pretend like you don't know why she's there and what she's wearing underneath that trench coat. Robert, come on.
Spoilers, nothing.
Come on.
Miss Lana Turner showed up instead of Libby.
So some of the details we got out of this are Coral becoming an activist. Oh my gosh, hello.
I didn't even pick up on that, wow.
I think he said that she's like still out in Atlanta hanging out with Core, like doing awesome stuff.
Honestly, given the way Libby treated her, I'm not surprised that Coral got involved.
Yeah, and you know, that made me think that Coral could come back in season 3 and really pose a big challenge to the whole Robert-Libby pairing. Like, because if she's just conveniently out of town, like, how is Libby gonna get some if Coral's hanging around the apartment?
Yeah.
Like,
they need to get
How
their
did
own
Libby think she
hotel.
was... Yeah. I just want to know how Libby thought she was going to pass that off, like if Coral had been there. Like, oh, I'm just here to talk about some volunteer stuff. Here are these envelopes, like...
At 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, so gut check time. Did you guys think that Libby knew up until the moment when she said, by the way, I know my husband's fucking on the side?
I thought she knew.
I thought she was suspecting it, like when she was watching them do their run-through of their, sex show, and she was kind of behind the window watching them have all this chemistry. I thought that she was kind of having her first big moment of, oh my God, this could be a reality. I didn't know that was probably the moment when she was accepting it. I always thought that she was just starting to get suspicious. I had no idea that she knew for years. She hid it very well.
She really did. That is interesting, just because there are, and I always go back to the commenters. There were commenters who just like could not wrap their heads around the idea that Libby could know and still be friendly with Ginny. But that's absolutely, like, that's a weirdly true thing. That's absolutely true. They were good friends, and they both kind of knew in the back of their minds that they were both sharing Bill, and that he was like this huge influence in both of their lives. So that's, yeah. The fact that
That's
she
crazy
could,
complicated.
yeah, hide it and then still be friends with the other woman.
It's kind of funny watching that scene with Ginny and Libby on the bench, where Libby is kind of saying all those things about how, her children can't be her whole life, and that, this picture-perfect family business is just, maybe it's not real, but she's going to try and create something that is real. I just kept thinking, knowing that, the Johnson Masters clan will eventually go on vacations together and, spend summers together, and Libby will look after the kids. I was just sitting there being like, is she actually going to tell Ginny that she knows something? I'm going to die if that happens. I was waiting with bated breath.
When, in the context of the series, do you guys think she started to suspect, or she started to realize, given what we know now?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. I would be really interested to go back and rewatch and try and trace her discovery of it, because that was something I never suspected that she knew.
I think I would have to go with when she came to work for the study, and they were going through the records, and she kept asking Bill about the participants who had had sex. What was it, like 25 times?
23.
Mm-hmm.
23. So that was, they did place a lot of emphasis of it on that point, but I think, to me, that reads as one of the first kind of signs where she's laying there thinking, okay, who is this?
And it's weird to think back and to think that if she's perceptive enough to know factually that something is going on, like, think about the possibility that she might have known that they were broken up at some point, that, they weren't speaking to each other, and that maybe something happened at some point when they got back together after she had the baby. It's just, to think about Libby realizing what's going on and sort of being able to track the chronology of it, it's crazy to think about.
Well, if they were broken up, he would have been home a hell of a lot more, probably, right?
Exactly, yeah. But, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, Alyssa, I agree with you. I really thought that we were going to kind of get to see the evolution of her being suspicious, and I think that kind of would have been sort of a standard thing for a show to do, but this was a really cool twist. It makes sense, and it is kind of obvious in a way, but at the same time, for it to come when it did was really kind of out of the blue, and it came at a really good moment. Yeah, it was a really good timing.
Yeah.
like, too, that they completely bypassed a lot of that, because now, with the doors blown completely open, they can take it in as many different directions as they want. It can be, oh, here's all of us vacationing together. Oh, you and Bill have to be conveniently gone for an hour? Well, I'll just be at the pool.
Or even, like, and I know that this is not going to happen, but it would be, like, the height of comedy to me if Libby, like, completely did a 180 on the whole thing and, like, kind of started, like, deviously pushing them together, or, like, creating reasons for them to be alone, or, like, even shipping them to some degree and being like, that's kind of interesting and fascinating, especially since she's kind of got her own piece on the side now.
Mm-hmm.
That would be hilarious.
Oh my god, I would die.
That would make some good fan fiction, if you ask me.
Somebody get on that.
Somebody get up on that.
You have been commissioned, listeners.
Pay attention. Yeah. So yeah, that was a good one, and I did like that we kind of got a nice evolution throughout the season, just of Libby being a complete shitlord, and then, sort of coming back around and sort of getting a little bit of redemption. I don't know that it was complete necessarily, because you do get the continued sense that Robert is, like, really, his higher common sense knows that this is a really bad idea, but she's trying to work that and trying to get it to stick.
I am so excited that Libby is developing as a character, and that she is kind of reaching into herself. And I feel like before I got not irritated, but just kind of bored by her.
Yes.
Because I feel like she just, sat at home and she cooked the stuff and she took care of the kids. And now we're actually seeing all of these complex things that she's dealing with. And I am not bored by her. Like, I am excited to see her and see what she's dealing with. And I'm excited to hear what she knows or what she doesn't know, or who she's going to go fuck. And, like, I think it's a nice change of pace for me in terms of watching Libby.
And I think she's just been upgraded majorly. The fact that she knows something just instantly attaches so much intrigue to her. Totally.
And I would love to, like you said, kind of, now that we, the audience, knows that she knows, to kind of watch and see how, I hope that it doesn't blow up too soon. I would love to see that kind of stretched out and see how she, interacts with them, or what she thinks about them now that we know that she's completely aware of what they're doing.
It'd be an amazing slow burn.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm so excited for Libby in season 3. Oh my gosh. And I think Ashford said in some interview that season 3 was going to kind of get into, like, the really true nature of the fact that they were in a 3-way marriage, and, like, really that whole dynamic that they had going. So I think, like, we're going to see, I think next season is really going to be directly at focusing on kind of the 3 of them, especially since Jenny isn't going to have her kids so much anymore. She could, be really lonely spending a lot of time at home when she is at home, and wind up spending a lot more time in the master's home and kind of incorporating herself as, like, a second wife on premises in a way.
Oh my God.
It'd be incredible.
I would love it.
Just be awesome. Do we want to say anything about Flo and Austin? Alyssa, I know you had an opinion about this. I'll turn it over to you.
My opinion about Flo and Austin is, I know that you were saying that there's been a lot of mixed reviews kind of about them and their storyline and their relationship, and a lot of people are actually opposed to it, and I kind of take the opposite side of that. I think it's refreshing to see the gender and the role reversal going on, because I have seen so much television and so much media where, it's almost a cliche, like the male boss, he's shallow about his female employees and pressures them into doing things. And I really like seeing a woman like Flo, who is not, I think she's pretty, but she's overweight. She's not conventionally, like, the model in the office. And I like seeing her, A, in a position of power, and B, getting with I think Austin is really fucking hot. Like, I am so excited that she's having that, because I think I would just die. Mm-hmm. So I love seeing that she's getting to do all of these things that are normally reserved for either, men in positions of power, especially in media, or like the stereotypical hot model girlfriends. I think it's so interesting, and I really love seeing that reversal going on.
Well, and I'll add to that. I think the best part for me in this episode was not only, seeing the gender dynamics flipped, but that she got to be so condescending to him about things like, NATO and the formation and Soviet aggression. Like, things like that, that was what made me appreciate the storyline, and not sort of what we saw in the beginning stages, which was pretty much just, oh, here, hot young blonde doctor, come sleep with me. You will be on time at 8 o'clock.
I think she's really been holding that in her back pocket. You get the sense from like the way she delivers those lines that she's been waiting to drop that on him for a long time and to see what his reaction is. And it's pretty priceless to see him fully engage in this. Oh, wait, you're rich and your family has connections and you're powerful. Suddenly you're super hot and I'm willing to admit that.
Right. And I love that she doesn't buy into that either, because she doesn't invite him to the party. She doesn't give a shit. Like, he thinks that, yeah, like you said, that she's hot now, but she's still just not giving a shit. Like,
she knows who she is, and that's respectable.
I love that she's had his number the whole time, because I like the way that she played that entire scene, just watching him try to flip that switch and get really desperate, like, no, take me to the party with the Kennedys. And she's like, no, honey.
She's just like, okay.
Slow your roll, sweetheart. Let's see. So, do we hit everything that we wanted to hit there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's close it out with Bill and Ginny and the incredible betrayal / miscommunication / manic breakdown / Ethan. Fucking Ethan.
Fucking Ethan.
God damn it, Ethan.
I am not a fan of Ethan.
No one is. No one in their right mind is a fan of Ethan.
The second he hit Ginny, I was done. I was so done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know Melissa can attest to this, but when I was watching the episode, I usually watch it a little delayed because reasons. But so I was watching and I was texting Melissa at the same time, and I was like, oh no, they put the episode on TV, and she texted me back and she's like, wait for it. And then I saw Ethan, and I think my next few texts were just unintelligible, caps locked rage.
I think it was just a whole series of fuck.
Something like that.
Which I enjoyed. Yeah, I had heard that Beau Bridges was going to be back, and I remember Nicholas D'Agostino, vaguely hinting, people can always come back later, but I thought he had kind of been given the swan song in the premiere. So I was genuinely shocked when I saw Ethan on the TV. I was absolutely surprised, but it made sense when you think about it.
It was such a high low too, because I love Beau Bridges. So of course, as soon as we saw Barton in that bar, I was very, very pleased. And then, as we know, I was not happy to see Ethan whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to process because all I want to do is bitch about how much I hate Ethan.
Go right ahead. We are
Ethan, you guys.
Yeah, no.
I hate everything about him. No, it was devastating. I feel like just that added a whole extra layer of the betrayal. It was shitty enough having it just happen, right? And then it's like Ethan comes along to punch me in the face one more time. It wasn't bad enough. I wasn't already dead. You need to bring Ethan on. It's so rude.
How Ethan was it for him to show up and for his line to be about, there's also room for us to study women, when Masters and Johnson, the very first thing that they studied was female orgasm. That was the first thing that they addressed. And Ethan's oh, there's still room for us to tackle that subject.
Between that and, sexual pleasure of a man, which I think was one of the key tidbits that I caught and raged over. Ugh.
Yeah, I love that they're discussing this as two guys just stand there and talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, it was a huge thing for Masters and Johnson. They discussed on how important it was for them and how relatable it was going to be to have both a man and a woman at the table. And that is something that this special obviously missed. I'm a little bit biased, but I think they missed the mark on that one.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that there's just two guys standing there, you're treating half the population and you're two guys. You're not getting any kind of outside perspective. And what do you want to bet that, within the context, within the universe of the show, Ethan, I'm just imagining the most horrible things. He shows up and is trying to remember what he learned from Ginny and is just, making shit up and trying to cobble together his own study out in UCLA.
Yeah.
Has Ethan been working with this guy the whole time, or did they just bring him on to shoot this show?
I guess we're going to find out because they don't say.
Yeah.
See, I assumed that they were working together the whole time. That's why I wasn't sure if Barton had, engineered that part of it, because it didn't seem like they would just let him wander onto the set and be filmed in this supposedly groundbreaking TV thing if he had just kind of walked in from the street.
But I mean, like, maybe not so much walking from the street, but just like I wonder if he went to Kaufman with this idea, we need to do a sex study, or if it was like, oh, Dr. Kaufman's doing a sex study, I should totally join that, because to me, those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a question. Bill, when they're watching it and Ethan comes on, Bill doesn't look very fazed by it. Did he know about Ethan when he orchestrated this whole thing, or was that something that Barton did?
I got the impression that he was as surprised by it as everybody else, but you're right, that could have been something that he had prior knowledge of.
To me, my gut thing was when Shep, the PR guy, is talking about somebody fucked up. To me, initially, although I don't know if this is correct or not, I initially thought that Ethan was supposed to be the scapegoat for that. Like, I almost feel like initially I thought that Bill kind of orchestrated the Ethan issue to kind of explain why this was happening and kind of take the blame off, or the suspicion off, of wondering who leaked the shit or who ruined it. And I feel like Ethan kind of, oh, well, of course it's Ethan. Like, that was kind of a way for them to kind of take the suspicion off of Bill or anybody in that room.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because I mean, Ethan's already on Ginny's shit list as it is. I mean, generally now he definitely is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, between the two of them, I mean, you know, him and Ginny notwithstanding, him and Bill, I think the last time they really interacted was, you know, through fist fights and blood, so.
Yep. And Bill wanders into that exam room to go comfort Ginny, and boy, the sympathy and the emotional landing of that is really undercut by the fact that you can fully see the guilt and just the horrible realization of what he's done on his face. Like, it really takes away some of that lovely moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, but I still wanted to love it.
Can we just pretend like you didn't just, you know, ruin your partner's life and make your relationship with her even more disgustingly codependent and awful?
Oh, I was going to say, the first time I watched that hugging scene, I loved it. I thought it was gorgeous, and I thought they were, you know, continuing to relate to one another on a whole nother level. Like, he actually got kind of emotionally invested in her and what happened in her personal life. And that's how I read it at first. But now going back and watching it after I know that he was the cause of all this, it does, like you said, kind of take away from that. And seeing his guilt, I think, too, is important for a different reason, because it goes back to him being kind of emotionally attached to her, but it's different for me now, and it's not as enjoyable. But,
yeah, unfortunately.
I'll sadly agree.
You know, in a way, it is a little redeemed by the fact that he does say how sorry he is, and it immediately cuts to Ginny's face, like maybe in the back of her mind she kind of realizes how weird that is, that he's actually apologizing, this guy who never says sorry to anybody. But I don't know, I'm not going to make a judgment call on how much she may or may not realize that, you know, he feels guilty.
Yeah.
Who knows? Ginny tends to, like, sometimes you think that she knows something, but then she magically does not realize that her partner is impotent and has been for a while, and, like, there's a reason you've been getting so much great head, and...
Well, I was going to say, the sex hormones, they make you, like, oblivious. She's, like, getting so much good head, of course, she's distracted.
She's
la,
just...
la, 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 la.
Yeah, she's having too much of a good time.
I have a question for you guys. When he's sitting at the bar with Barton, and he says that he would have done it differently, and Barton is like, would you have really? Do you guys think that had he known the full extent of Ginny's custody battle, do you think he would have thought about it more, or maybe not gone through with it, or do you think he would have done it regardless because he prioritized the work over her?
I think it would have been a contentious thing, but at least, like, I think he still would have gone through with it because he believes so much that, like, there's no way that this film is going to help them. It's going to be a huge detrimental thing. I think at the very least he would, like, the situation would have been a little bit different. He would not have released the film, but also Ethan and Dr. Kaufman would not have released a film, because that seemed like something that just kind of magically came out of all of this that would not have been there if he hadn't made the phone call to Barton.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think he had to have anybody come out with a second film at all? Like, why do we feel like he couldn't have just pulled rank and just vetoed his own and, like you said, not had anybody put anything out?
I think it was just a question of he wanted somebody to put out a shitty product so he could come along and be the shiny, sparkly upgrade.
Yeah, I would agree.
That makes sense.
I think he wants the Nobel Prize. He wants to be noticed, and he wants to be the better version. I mean, he's willing to let somebody stand in the spotlight for a little while, as long as he can come along and, you know, push them out of the way and make his own name and become this big deal.
I think that's kind of contradictory to his attitude earlier. Before, he was all about, we need to be first. We need to, like when he and Ginny are sitting in the diner and they're going over that manuscript talking about the stages of arousal, he's all upset that this guy got to it first. And even though he had 2 extra stages of arousal or whatever, stuff that Bill didn't even agree with or think was scientifically valid, at that point, it was all about him just wanting to get there first and get there first. It's so important to get there first. And now it's almost like he's pulling back to let somebody get there first so that he can outshine that person. I'm kind of wondering when the switch happened in his head about that.
Well, he had several conversations with Ginny, and he did kind of change his mind, because initially he was like, oh, we hired this PR firm, and Ginny was like, we don't want to do that. And then he was like, oh, wait, we don't want to do that. And suddenly she was all about it. So Bill's opinion of fame, I guess you could call it, just this whole PR thing, really shifts back and forth very quickly, because I don't think he fundamentally likes letting someone else be in charge of their trajectory upward. I think that's what his problem is.
Mm-hmm. I also think, too, he only wants to be first if he can do it his way.
Absolutely.
And under the precise conditions that he deems most worthy and closest to his trajectory and intended goal. So, like, this Kaufman in the Medical Journal was, you know, hair-ripping, teeth-grinding, upsetting, because, you know, this is a legitimate publication. This is something that respectable people read and where you can talk frankly about sex, whereas TV is kind of, you know, shitty for suburbanites who maybe don't have sex ever and are really interested in the science. Like, you know, it's kind of that elitist thing, like, well, I want the fame and I want people to know my name, but not this way.
And isn't it ironic that Bill wants to be recognized in the medical trade journals and all that sort of thing, but what's really going to catapult him upward is being someone that lay people relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least as far as his work is concerned. So there's kind of a level of winking at us that the writers are doing there. Yeah. So we end with a nice montage of the JFK inauguration speech and checking in with Betty and Austin, and ending with Masters and Johnson, as they, you know, are now calling themselves, talking to Lester and Barbara, and that triumphant music. I wish I knew what the song was called, because it pops up frequently. I think the first time we really heard it was last season when they were in the lab having sex and they both climaxed at the same time. Like, it's that music. It's really specific, but it's like the Masters and Johnson theme song.
Triumphant moments.
Yeah. Orgasmic theme music. What did you guys think of the montage?
I mean, I guess I'm glad it was more positive than the bulk of this episode, but I'm not really a montage person, so, you know, I didn't feel like we necessarily had to see all the scenes overlaid with Kennedy's inspiring remarks, but I did enjoy, you know, our glimpses of Betty and a couple of things, so.
I thought it was a fitting end to a season. I feel like it kind of, I obviously am not happy with all of the bad shit that happened, but I feel like that kind of, it felt like a definitive kind of ending that also gave hope and inspiration for the next season. I'm glad it wasn't a cliffhanger, just because that I can't deal. But it felt finite, but also left enough room for what is to come, and that's what I appreciated about the montage and the way that they chose to end the episode and the season.
I didn't feel like the JFK theme was a thread throughout the season. I mean, it kind of popped in there towards the end, but it just felt like this really huge swelling orchestral moment, as if this had been something that had been going on since the first episode.
Right.
But at the same time, I agree with you that it does set the tone for season 3, I think most importantly, because it's a kind of an early breakthrough. Like, these characters are breaking through, and they're seeing change, and they're seeing hope, and they're seeing kind of a new light in the darkness, if you want to get schmaltzy about it. Like, just the light at the end of the tunnel, as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, it definitely felt like they were building to this specific point, and so even though, you know, some of the season has been a little uneven, and it seemed like they wanted to tell certain stories and maybe didn't have time and had to leave a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor, at least this particular ending, I think, felt more natural than some of the the ones in other episodes.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys was there's Bill says in the bar, I never meant to hurt Virginia, and Barton replies, no, you never do. And then at the end, this language keeps repeating itself, this togetherness, in it together, taking a leap of faith, of trust, this dialogue sort of circles around from earlier conversations, and Bill looks at Ginny and says, yeah, that's really the key, as they're describing the sensate focus, I guess, pitch to Lester and Barbara. And then we sort of have this earlier quote from a few episodes ago when Flo says, when has self-awareness ever really changed a person's behavior? I mean, are you guys at all optimistic that Bill is going to take Barton's advice seriously? I don't think he would ever confess to Ginny willingly that he had completely fucked her over as far as the custody agreement, but, do you guys see anything coming out of that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it'll come back to bite him, definitely, but like you said, I don't see him being willing to give up the ghost and admit, yes, this is my decision. I screwed you over. Good day.
Yeah.
I don't ever see him volunteering that information, and I don't understand how it wouldn't be selfish of him to reveal that information. I don't. Right. If he only tells her to get it off his own chest or because he's feeling guilty, that'll destroy her, and all it will do is make him feel better. I feel like that would be kind of a selfish move, but I mean, maybe he will. I don't foresee him doing that, but I mean, he might.
I think the selfishness angle, that's something I hadn't thought of. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and it would serve no purpose, really, other than to, fix his own guilt, I guess you want to say, because all it will do is upset her, destroy her, fuck up whatever they've got going at whatever moment he decides to reveal this bombshell. I don't foresee him ever needing to do it for a reason other than to fix his guilt.
Interesting. Well, I thought it was a great episode. It was a bit of a rocky season, but I really enjoyed it. But I'm loyal to the show, so I tend to see it with a bit of a sparkle to it. I'm
gonna love it no matter what.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm gonna keep going with it. I mean, I'm already too emotionally invested in this.
This is my life.
This is.
We just can't learn how to quit you.
Okay, so let's, do you guys want to go through and, talk about our absolute favorite and our least favorite things from this season?
Yeah.
Kind of a nice way to cap things off. I'll let you guys think about it if you want. Who wants to go first?
I do want to think about it.
Okay.
But my favorite part of the season is all the sex, obviously.
That aside from the absolute best part of the season, which is all the sex.
You know what I really did like was when Bill got in the fight at the second hospital and shoved that egg roll down that guy's throat.
Dude, no, that was the best.
That was amazing.
That will live on in infamy forever.
That was incredible.
Yes, it will.
Just, anytime you disagree with anything in any of your recaps, just post that GIF. Even in Season 7, when they're old people, just harken back to the days when Bill would shove Chinese food down men's throats.
Well, in this recent episode, when that random crew member went in there and started talking about how he went home and fucked his wife after he saw the monkeys, and then he was talking about how Virginia was hot shit and Bill was gross. He was eating Chinese food, and then I posted that because I wanted Bill to just go over there and do an encore presentation of the egg roll choking,
film canister frisbee starting now.
Go. Yeah. I think my favorite thing from this season, besides all the sex, which was A+, guys. I think episode 3 and the fact that it really set up, and they really got into Bill's whole childhood trauma. I mean, this isn't a hugely positive thing, but I really think it was important for them to introduce that early and kind of start to explain why he's just so messed up in the head, because it opens the doors for him to become a more emotionally grounded person. And develop a lot of character growth, which he really needed. So I think if I go back and rewatch all of Season 1 and all of Season 2, I think there's going to be a discernible difference, which will be really exciting in his character. So that was pretty cool.
And like you said, I'm glad they brought it up earlier. They introduced it early because then Frank coming along would have made way less sense to me.
You're right.
I feel like because they set it up, I wasn't caught so off guard by that, and it felt more of a natural part of the narrative.
Yeah.
I've got one more that I'm thinking of. But
go for it.
Surprisingly to no one, it involves Lillian.
Oh yeah.
Poor Lillian.
But I think my favorite moment between them, I can't even go there with the death episode because I'm still sad about it, but The moment where she and Virginia get into a fight after she tries to record the documentary of the pap smear and like the procedure and has the word salad moment. Mm-hmm. That, I think, is one of my favorite Lily and Virginia scenes, maybe of the whole series.
I did like after she came out of the place where she was getting cancer treatment and she couldn't remember the word for taxi and she
that was amazing.
Swore for the first time. Like, that was just so... The way she played that was just incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. What about your least favorite moments?
Ethan. All of Ethan.
Apart from Ethan. That's our baseline.
So on a scale of 1 to Ethan, how much do you hate this?
How pissed off are you? And I this is going to be controversial because this gets into my favorite part of this whole series, Bill and Ginny having sex. I think, in a weird way, I think my least favorite sex scene, let me put it that way, was when she forced him to get down on his knees. That was super weird. Like, I understand why they did it, and I understand why it's a really powerful character moment, but it was just like, I don't know, it was the way it was played was super uncomfortable in a way that, I don't know, I still haven't quite gotten past, I guess.
I felt like there was a lot of tension in that scene, and it wasn't necessarily sexy tension. Like, I'm just remembering it and how I felt about it. Of course, I died because it was hot and he was on his knees and stuff. But from what I remember, it did kind of feel uncomfortable.
Threatening in a way, like in a weird way. And Bill has power over Virginia, but at the same, it was just, I guess their whole power play dynamics, I think it kind of, not crossed a line exactly, but it just felt like it was really, really obvious. And I think I prefer it when it's more subtle and you don't quite know who's in charge. I like there to be more ambiguity in it. Yeah. Whereas to have one of them be totally out there, pitching is just, ugh. It gets too broadly bondage dominance, and that's just, ugh, weird. Weird for cable TV.
Least favorite moments besides that, the only thing I keep thinking about was the Betty and Helen and Jean triangle.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of those things, it wasn't like my least favorite moment. Like, there were certainly other scenes where I just cringed watching them unfold. A lot of the stuff at Memorial fell into that category with creepy Dr. Greathouse.
Ugh. I had pushed that out of my mind. I'd forgotten that he even existed.
But I guess that was my least favorite in that it had nowhere to go, and it was so self-contained and so annoying that much as I enjoyed trying to see Sarah Silverman work her way into the show, I just did not care about any of those characters enough to see it play out for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I agree.
I heard that Sarah Silverman was going to be back for season 3, but then I heard the other day from someone that she and Michael had broken up. And I know there had been rumors that, she was getting too clingy, I guess, according to the tabloids, and who knows whether or not that's true. But then all of a sudden it started, coming out that they had already broken up, which was interesting. And it'll be interesting if they do break up and if she stays on the show and if that I don't know, affects it in some way.
Well, if he and Caitlin Fitzgerald could do it, then...
Yeah, that's got to be an interesting aspect to their acting.
I think it's probably it's going to turn into method acting at this point, I think.
Yeah, damn near. Do you want to go on and talk about, we'll do this really quickly, Conley. Do you want to go on and talk about the predictions that we made at the end of season 1 and which ones came true?
Let's do it.
All right, so I predicted a Ginny abortion storyline, and I need a sound effect. I need a womp womp. Didn't happen. I'm so
sad that you didn't get that. I wanted that to happen.
Maybe next season. Who knows? I don't know. I think I was pitching these way too far in advance because, as we have learned, this was kind of in a mysterious period in their lives when they were just hunkered down doing research and nothing really big happened. So the writers kind of had to fill in as necessary. So I think maybe that's coming. Maybe that's in the pipeline. I also predicted, I said I wanted Bill and Ginny to move into Bill's house for the summer when Libby is away. That did not happen. Womp womp. Maybe in the future. Or maybe Bill will move in with Virginia now that her kids aren't there. Who knows? And lastly of mine was the Vicuña coat. Oh, sad trombone. It didn't appear.
Vicuña.
My poor Vicuña coat. As far as yours went, you knew that Barton and Margaret were going to have an awkward love scene. Cue my cheering, trumpeting sound effect noise. Yay!
Yay!
Got that one right. You said you wanted to see Libby given a deep and complex postpartum depression storyline. I pretty much feel like we got that.
Yeah, I'd say especially like a couple episodes in when she, with a lot of the choral stuff, that was what that seemed like to me, as well as many unresolved Bill issues.
Yeah, and then you said it would be fun to see Bill treating different famous clients like the Shah of Iran, some Hollywood actors, things like that. We will see if that is in the pipeline. And then I can't remember which one of us said this, but Lillian was going to die. That one came true, unfortunately. We said goodbye to Lillian halfway through the season, damn near. So I don't know.
Good times.
Yeah, I don't know how our batting average is. The writers need to listen to us more often. All right, so do we have any other comments? Any other stuff we want to talk about?
I'm drawing a blank here.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I will. Do you want me to close us out, or do you want to close us out, Alyssa?
You can do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Alyssa, for joining us. Everyone, you can go follow her. What WTF did I miss? I know we always say what the fuck did I miss, but it's WTF did I miss? You can find her video recap series on YouTube. You can find her on Tumblr. She is very funny, engaging, awesome to talk to. We were so glad that you got to join us for this finale podcast. If you enjoyed it, hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You guys are a blast, and I love the insight that you bring. I think it's just phenomenal, and it adds an extra level of enjoyment to an already kick-ass show.
Yeah, the whole fandom has just been great, growing exponentially and doing all kinds of awesome stuff out there. So we will sign off for this season. We'll probably do like a little mini prediction show before season 3, but I'll stick around and keep posting the GIFs and keep posting pictures. So we will see you guys.
From us again.
Yes, we will see you guys in 10 months. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast and hanging out with us, and we'll see you next year.
Bye.
Bye.